Hags are an interesting creature in D&D. They exist in this nebulous space between being wonderfully iconic and instantly recognizable, and yet very difficult to effectively use because their stat block doesn't give you a whole lot to work with, if you're not looking in the right places. When you think about a villain in D&D, the first thing that probably comes to mind are the big names, things like Vecna or Strahd, or if not them, probably some of the more intense but generic monsters like dragons or demon lords or even giants. And there's a good reason for this. It's really easy to convey the magnitude of world-threatening issues when those looking to threaten that world are these massive ancient evils with malevolent ambitions that have the capacity to control armies of hundreds behind them. But I truly think what makes for a way better or at least more interesting villain isn't one defined just by their own raw power, but rather it's those that can utilize other avenues of indirect power and utilize their creativity and patience and their ability to manipulate to turn the world against itself. And, with any luck, maybe even the adventurers too. In this light, hags are truly some of the most wicked big bads you can run. So why are we talking about this? Because it's Monster Week. Specifically, it's Fey Week. As part of Ginny D and Pointy Hat's yearly celebration of all things monstrous, we are diving headfirst into the Feywild, and even more specifically, we are looking at the three main hags, Green, Sea, and Night Hags, and how you can use them as so much more than just simple stat blocks in your games. Hags are a representation of pure evil in the most unbridled and personal forms. They are ancient, they are malicious, and even their twisted and withered bodies reflect their vile intentions. Beneath those claws and the blotchy skin, their tangled hair and crooked teeth, there's this certain wickedness that delights in the misery of others. Hags are no strangers to performing insane acts either. They are known to steal newborn children, or sometimes even those still in their mother's wombs. Once they've got it, they'll go ahead and consume that baby, and a week later, it'll give birth to a daughter who looks and appears to be human. Depending on vibes, it'll either raise the child on its own or return it to the unsuspecting and grieving mother, who has no clue that on its 13th birthday, the child will go through a grotesque transformation and turn into the spitting image of her hag mother. But why? They're not looking to storm castles or build armies. They just want the mother and the family and the community to feel pain and loss and suffering. The hag is willing to give the baby back and wait 13 years just to watch the horror show unfold. And honestly, I kind of respect the commitment. Hags are ancient beings that originated in the Feywild. They've made their way to the material plane, where they often settle in forests, stormy coasts, swamps, and moors, and over the course of years and decades, the land around their settlements begins to change and warp around them. Crops might fail, waters might start to turn foul, and strange creatures begin to make appearances. But most importantly, fear begins to spread through these nearby communities. Probably the most concerning reality of a hag, though, is that once you've begun to notice these changes happening, it's already too late. By nature, hags are manipulators, deceivers, and deal-makers. They spent the better part of centuries gathering knowledge, largely for the purpose of tempting common folk into making terrible choices. A desperate farmer may be willing to offer something of significant personal importance to stop the blight of their crops, a grieving parent will do anything to get their child back, and an adventurer might even seek forbidden knowledge in the hopes to defeat some greater evil. And in all of these cases, a hag will gladly take the deal, but in none of those cases will it be a fair one. Making a deal with a hag has basically nothing to do with what they stand to gain. They aren't really looking to amass riches or gain status. A hag's bargain is all about what you stand to lose. They relish in little more than watching mortals compromise their values, abandon their principles, or sacrifice something near and dear in exchange for what they consider to be trivial knowledge or power, or in some cases, even just hope. In a campaign, hags are at their best when they aren't just monsters tucked away in the swamp waiting to be defeated. They are truly the harbingers of misery, and they need to be used as so much more than just a stat block to yield their true potential. They wait and watch and manipulate those around them from the shadows, and they corrupt people and communities. The Monster Manual presents three types of hags: Green Hags, Night Hags, and Sea Hags. Each of these embodies a different brand of cruelty and corruption, which we will explore in this video, along with how they can become the driving force behind some of the more unsettling villains and campaigns that a DM can use at their table. The Green Hag is probably one of the most deceptively powerful creatures that you can run in a D&D campaign. And I don't just mean deceptively powerful in a they're stronger than you think kind of way, but more in a their very nature is to constantly deceive and mislead and corrupt people kind of way. While they are perfectly fine in combat, which we will get to later, what makes them more threatening doesn't have as much to do with their raw strength as it has to do with their knack for weaponizing the despair and hope of those around them. Typically, Green Hags will live in forests or swamps, the kinds of places that already tend to be fairly isolated. But like I mentioned earlier, they're not just sitting there and waiting to be attacked. They are active in their pursuits. They are willing to put in the work to ruin the lives of those that surround them. They make for such interesting villains because they're mostly just obsessed with watching the light fade from other people. They want your good intentions to backfire and have the heroes either doubt themselves or even cross a moral line that feels like there is no turning back from. Corruption and manipulation is at the heart of everything that they do. The important thing to keep in mind is that manipulation can take many forms, but it rarely, if ever, is about achieving some singular or strategic victory. Hags are not looking to conquer territory or gain political power. They just want to watch people destroy themselves and they want to watch the world burn. Maybe that manipulation could take the form of a concerned passerby who has heard strange tales about the leadership in the town, and they can use some of their abilities to forge evidence or stage events to lend some credence to the rumors that they themselves are spreading. Using disguised self or invisibility or minor illusion to try to make it look like these things are happening just to plant the seeds of distrust in the minds of the villagers can be an incredibly powerful thing to do. And again, it's not like the hag is doing this because she wants to take over and become the leader of the town. This is not some sort of self-motivated act. They're all in it to just watch the paranoia and suspicion fester so the town slowly destroys itself. This could result in leaders being overthrown, innocents being killed, people spying on and distrusting each other. All of which is exactly what the hag wants to happen. And for them, eventually this kind of just all becomes self-propelling at a certain point. Fractured and paranoid townspeople become easier to corrupt and to manipulate. Or better yet, they might result in some few looking for answers or a solution, and the hag may position herself in such a way as to have the exact answer that the person is looking for a price. Maybe that price is the newest born child in the town, maybe it's the blood of a loved one, or the head of an enemy. Something that pushes the person outside of their comfort zone or what they were probably expecting to do, and the hag will pretty much always fulfill her end of the bargain. They're not really interested in welching on a debt. She'll happily comply to send anyone she can down a dark road that there is no turning back from, knowing that it will eventually lead to that person's own downfall too. You can use these same kinds of things on the players as well. They don't need to know that there's a hag around, or even if they do, you can still promise them exactly what they want, as long as you can get some blood on their hands in the process. Players are famous for taking risks that they don't need to because they can just deal with the problems later. Mechanically, their stat block reinforces this role perfectly. The Green Hag spellcasting and abilities are all about illusion and misdirection. Disguise Self, which lasts for 24 hours for them, allows the hag to move freely through communities in an unassuming form, observing and influencing events without being detected. Invisibility, which leaves no tracks for her, lets her escape consequences or stalk targets from the shadows. And Minor Illusion and Dancing Lights allow her to manipulate environments and lure victims exactly where she wants them. There is one ability though that truly defines the Green Hag, and that's their mimicry trait. This simple ability allows them to reproduce voices or animal sounds and again just further lure people into danger. It's easy to imagine villagers disappearing after hearing a loved one calling for help deep within the woods, or a party wandering deeper into a cursed swamp because they heard a traveler crying out nearby. In combat, a Green Hag being CR3 is dangerous, but not overwhelming. She has solid durability and multiple attacks, but she's rarely meant to stand alone in a straightforward fight. Instead, she should only appear after the players have already been misled, divided, or weakened in some other way. Her claw attacks are fine, dealing an average of 11 damage split between slashing and poison, and most of her spells are utility focused, which shows that she isn't really meant to be a solo fight kind of monster. Her biggest weapon is the at-will ability to cast Ray of Sickness at 3rd level for 48 damage on a hit, which is not too bad, but you'll certainly want some other foul creatures around to defend her, things like blights or shambling mounds or displacer beasts, or maybe even the corrupted people that she quote-unquote saved. Before we get to Sea Hags, I do want to give a huge thank you to this video sponsor, DSCRYB. If you're unfamiliar, DSCRYB is undoubtedly the best place to get the most incredible descriptions and music and sound effects and maps and everything you could ever want to make your games feel so incredibly immersive. And most importantly, all of their work is made by humans and is AI free. DSCRYB makes it so easy to find any descriptions you need, including tons available for hags, their encounters or their lairs, and just about anything you could imagine. Whether you play in person or online, DSCRYB and Opus work so seamlessly together to make moments memorable and feel more interactive at your table. If you like what you're hearing, use my link in the description or the pinned comment to double the length of your free trial from 2 weeks to a full month. Thanks again to DSCRYB for sponsoring this video. Sea Hags, in contrast to Green Hags, are a lot more primal in nature. They will absolutely engage in some kind of trickery and disguise themselves when appropriate, but that is not their typical MO. Sea hags are physically repulsive, even compared to other hags. Their skin is slimy and scaly, their hair resembles seaweed, and it covers their emaciated bodies with their lifeless and glassy eyes. The curse that makes them so resoundingly disgusting to look at somehow even pervades through their illusion, with even their illusory forms appearing haggard at best. It's this ugliness that drives the sea hag's true motivation, which is essentially the complete destruction of beauty. Whenever a sea hag encounters any form of beauty, whether environmental, a person, or anything else, her instinct is to destroy that thing. Notably, it doesn't strictly seek to kill, but rather to remove any semblance of beauty or prettiness from its surroundings. When it comes to a person, this means permanent scarring or maybe some emotional damage or disfigurement. When it comes to her environmental surroundings, this is reflected in putrefying waters, ravaging coastlines, and ensuring the suffering of any nearby fishing villages. The stark contrast that exists between green and sea hags should be plainly evident. Green hags thrive on deception and manipulation and will rarely reveal themselves unless it has become necessary. Sea hags, as noted earlier, are a lot more primal in their actions. While they may use some form of deception or trickery, perhaps to gain access to a sailing ship or have some local villagers try to take care of the old crone wandering aimlessly, their goals are typically a lot more short-sighted than green hags. Sea hags want to eliminate the notion of everything pretty and beautiful, and they want to make sure those around them experience that loss. This is a much more in-your-face and aggressive tactic. They slide on into your DMs, and once they're in, they will do their absolute best to ruin everything for everyone. Sea hags thrive on fear and anguish, which we will see reflected nicely in their stat block. While only being CR2, they're not exactly a powerhouse, but they will also often surround themselves with other Aquan creatures like Marrow. With an AC of 14 and 52 hit points, they don't have a ton of solid defenses working for them, though depending on the nature of their encounter, a 40-foot swim speed can certainly do a lot of work. While it has a fairly unimpressive claw attack, the two standout features here are its vile appearance trait and death glare, which both work together very well and highlight the fear element of the sea hag. Any creature that starts its turn within a pretty sizable 30-foot radius of the sea hag and can see its true form is subjected to a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, they become frightened until the start of their next turn. That on its own is already quite powerful. But when combined with Death Glare, this has the potential to instantly kill any frightened creature. On a failed save against that ability, a creature with 20 or fewer hit points is immediately just set to 0, but if they are above 20, they instead take 3d8 psychic damage, reflecting the psychological and mental anguish that beholding a sea hag entails. Using these abilities patiently, as Disguise Self also lasts for 24 hours for the sea hag, and with some backup, you can turn this kind of a fight into one that is unexpectedly deadly. Finally, we have my personal favorite of the three, the Night Hag. Night Hags are creatures so foul and heinous that they were exiled from the Feywild ages ago, and have descended to Hades and have become fiends themselves. Not only do they seek to destroy and corrupt mortals, they view your life and your soul as nothing more than just currency to be bartered with. They will use their magic to twist and force you into performing horrifically evil deeds, and if that corruption eventually leads to be enough to kill you, they'll capture and sell your soul off to the highest bidder without so much as a second thought. Unlike other hags which rely on extended duration versions of Disguise Self, Night Hags have an innate shapeshifting ability that allows them to change their form at will. This allows them to quite seamlessly and effortlessly blend into their surroundings, but not only that, it can allow them to take on multiple forms easily during the same day to manipulate someone on 2 or even more fronts. While Green Hags were all about causing hope to fade in a village or town and sought to unleash chaos in its wake, and Sea Hags were hell-bent on eliminating beauty from the natural world, Night Hags are a bit more personal than that. They'll choose a victim, usually a singular person, or someone who they may have been able to discern as vulnerable or experiencing some troubles, and they'll stop at nothing to exploit those troubles. Using their shapeshifting ability, they might appear as a trusted friend or someone desperate in need, someone with the answer maybe to their immediate life crises, and once they've gained that connection, you're more or less just playing against the clock. Once the Night Hag has selected its victim, it will appear ethereally every single night, straddle the target, and then cast the dream spell to enter and shape the target's dreams. It can alter the landscape, create visions, or project some other signs, and can even freely move and converse with the target. Upon waking up, the target perfectly remembers that dream, and a Night Hag can use this to convince them of some kind of evil plot against them, or confuse them with delusions of grandeur into thinking they are far more capable than they are. or maybe to incite paranoia and convince them that someone is out to get them, or that they are even speaking to a deity, and assure them that what they are asking them to do will be met with divine approval or something of that nature. With this spell, a Night Hag can truly tap into the worst fears and concerns that a mortal might have and directly twist it against them. Alternatively, it could also use the spell to cause fear and terror directly to the target. If they do this, they can only deliver a short message, but then the target needs to make a saving throw. And on a failed save, they take 3d6 psychic damage, they gain no benefits from their long rest, and they also have their hit point maximum reduced by the amount of damage that they took. Eventually, this will get to the point where the target dies. When that happens, their soul becomes trapped inside the Night Hag's soul bag, which they will use as currency to trade to other fiends in the Nine Hells. This ability truly makes hags terrifying to deal with, and those that are being plagued by them will often just be seen as insane. These can definitely be used effectively against NPCs, where you can have the players hear about someone that's gone off the deep end in a town and now fancies themselves a ruler, or someone who has now devoted themselves to some unknown cause but is demanding a blood tax, or maybe someone that simply crawls up into the fetal position and hugs their legs and screams all day. There are tons of incredible avenues for utilizing the effects of the dream spell from a Night Hag. But depending on how the campaign is going, it can also be something very effective to use against a player, particularly if they provided a lot of details to work with in a backstory. Having them meet the disguised Night Hag, maybe befriending them, have them learn a bit about each other before the hag selects its victim, and then terrorizes them for days or weeks until they can either find a way to deal with the hag, or it kills them instead. In a fight, Night Hags are the strongest of the three that we've covered. They have the highest challenge rating at CR5, so that is to be expected. Their claws deal a combined average 26 damage, which is reasonable in this range. But the real hurt comes from their spellcasting, with spells like Magic Missile, which can be cast at will at level 4, and Phantasmal Killer, which not only deals damage, but also imposes disadvantage on the target's attack rolls while under the effect of the spell. A Night Hag wants its victim to be scared and struggling to accomplish anything, and even Magic Missile works well within this context. The spell doesn't miss. There's no getting away. A Night Hag can also use etherealness at will to disappear into the ethereal plane, to either make an escape, or to mess with the party, or get the drop on them if she knows what's coming. Or plane shift twice a day just to make an immediate exit if things start to go downhill. A hag has no honor to fight to the death. She could not care less. She will gladly run away, regroup, keep making more lives miserable, and eventually hunt you down when you least expect it. Being slow and patient and methodical is so key to an effective use of a hag in combat. Now, keen observers will note that I have not covered one major element of hags in this video: covens. That's because my friend DM Timothy has also done a deep dive on hags and their covens in his video for Fey Week, which will be available on Thursday. I will leave a link in the description once the video goes live, so definitely go check that one out too in a couple of days. So that's all I've got. Let me know all about the times that you've used hags in your games, some of your best or maybe worst moments, and how you use them to wreak havoc on your group. But otherwise, take care.